Aloha, everyone. I'm Steven Phillips, and I welcome you again to this session of the Spirit Groups. As we did the last time we were together, I invite everybody to take a moment now and just close your eyes. As you close your eyes, come to a refreshing breath. As you breathe out, get a sense of deeply relaxing and opening to a very deep listening. We're listening not to the story in the mind, but to that which is beyond the story. Notice that as we continue to listen and rest, we actually are able to come to the possibility of actually hearing. And Byron Katie has said that it is always essential that when we begin to do the work, that we first get very, very still the way we are right now. That this makes inquiry even more powerful. Because as I said, when we do this, we are actually able to listen. And in that listening, we can hear the answers that the four questions and the turnarounds give us. So by now, all of you are very familiar with the work of Byron Katie. And I have absolutely no doubt that for those of you that are actually putting your stressful thoughts on paper and applying the four questions and the turnaround, you have found a greater freedom, a greater joy, a greater ease in your life without those stressful thoughts. In the chapter that we're looking at tonight, a chapter called Making Friends with the Worst Possible Thing That Can Happen, we're going to look at those events and situations that may have happened in our life or may happen that we may have at the time felt were overwhelming or even unacceptable. These are experiences like losing your job or getting cancer, rape, having absolutely no money in the bank, losing a child in an accident. And in the outer world, it can look like a terrorist attack that kills hundreds of people. You know, one of the things that I love about Katie is that she is open to reality as it is. She meets it right where it is. And she has said that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. There are no mistakes. There's a story about Katie that I absolutely love, and there's many stories about her that are very funny and very enlightening. But she tells this story about the time right after she had had her awakening experience in the halfway house. She had gone home, and after she had been there for a little while, absorbed in this joy, in this freedom and openness that she had discovered, people suddenly began to show up at her doorstep in Barstow. And she said they would knock on the door and she would go, and there they would be at her front door. She said apparently they had heard that there was a lit lady living in Barstow, another word for spiritually awake. So she would go to the door, and there they would be with their hands folded in front of them, and they would be bowing to her, and they would be saying, "Namaste, Namaste." Of course, Katie had no background in spirituality at all before she woke up. What she thought they were saying was, "No mistake, no mistake, no mistake." And Katie says, I couldn't believe that the universe was sending me all of these people who, they got it, they were awake. But of course, they were saying, "Namaste." I love this story because it encapsulates the state that Byron Katie lives from moment to moment. And that is, there are no mistakes in the universe. Everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to happen. And as she would say, how can we know it was supposed to happen? Because it happened. Pretty simple. For those of you doing the work, you're beginning to discover that it is very, very simple. What is complicated is the story in our mind. And through the questions and the turnarounds, we can unravel that complication so that we can live with simplicity again. You know, there's a great question that Katie often brings. And this is another question that is not in the official 4 questions of the work. I'd like to tell you a story that introduces this question to you, and we'll work with this in just a moment. Back in 2002, 2003, when I was introduced to Katie's book, Loving What Is, very shortly after that, I was able to go and watch her do the work with others. There was a room full of people, and we were all given our Judge Our Neighbor worksheet. We all worked on it and filled out this sheet, judging our neighbor, putting down our stressful beliefs and thoughts. And then she would call on people to come up and do the work on those thoughts. Even though I wasn't picked that day, it didn't matter. There was a gentleman that was picked that went up, and he had terminal cancer. I'll never forget this. And he began to share his stressful beliefs, his thoughts. Thoughts like, I'm afraid to die. Thoughts like, I should have been kinder to my children. Thoughts like, I squandered my life. I should have lived more fully. And with every thought, he entered inquiry with openness, and these thoughts were dismantled. And I remember watching this man, and with every stressful thought that was taken to inquiry, he began to get lighter and lighter. In fact, he became almost radiant as he sat there. Tears were flowing down his cheeks. And then Katie asked a question toward the end that I had never heard her ask anyone before. She said, "Sweetheart, can you give me 3 legitimate reasons why getting cancer was better than not getting cancer?" I couldn't believe this question. And yet, this gentleman was so open. He was so free from his stressful thoughts. Not only did he give her 3 reasons, like, since I got cancer, I appreciate my life even more. Since I got cancer, my relationship with my children and my wife is better than it's ever been. Since getting cancer, I appreciate every moment that I get every day. And he went on and on. There was more than 3. And Katie was beaming and smiling with him. It was such a powerful experience. He had made friends with the worst possible thing that could happen. I'd like to invite you now to take this question and, in a moment, sit with the question and then have a discussion with each other from what comes from your experience. Take the question. As you go back and you think of a time in your life that was particularly stressful, Maybe it's something that you still haven't accepted. Maybe it's something that is still a burden on your shoulders. As you go inside, ask the question, can I find 3 legitimate reasons why this particular thing happening to me was better than if it had not happened? Take that question and do this exercise now. Wonderful. I can only imagine that your discussion was very, very powerful and insightful as you began to look at those situations and free yourself from the stressful thoughts around those traumas that have occurred to you or that have happened in the world. You know, Katie has said that it is not the situations in the world that create suffering inside of us. It is our thoughts about those situations. Maybe all of you are beginning to discover this as you make friends with the worst possible thing that can happen. As we end our time together this evening, I would like to finish this by, again, reading some words from Byron Katie from the chapter, Making Friends with the Worst Possible Thing That Can Happen. Katie says, "Nothing terrible has ever happened except in our thinking. Reality is always good, even in situations that seem like nightmares. The story we tell is the only nightmare we have ever lived. When I say that the worst that can happen is a belief, I am being literal. The worst that can happen to you is your uninvestigated belief system. Investigate those thoughts and free yourself." I want to thank everyone again for taking part in the Spirit Groups. And I look forward to hearing from all of you about the power of your experience that you've encountered over these weeks of doing the work. I encourage you to stay with it, to free yourself, and to remember that you now have the technology, anytime that you wish, to free yourself from those burdens, those stressful and uninvestigated thoughts, and set yourself free. Thank you, everyone.